Good morning, Friday moaners. Good morning. Morning, Hazel. Morning, Margaret O'Brien. Good morning if you're listening on podcast. It's hashtag Fuck Off Friday. Friday of half term is here already for those half-termers who are on half term. Half term is ending and they're dreading the return to school. How is everyone? How are you all? Morning, Ellery. Morning, Hazel. Morning, Margaret. Obviously, we've got the Friday quiz at the end of this live for those steadfast loyalists who like to hang around and just find out how little they know. That's all it does for me. It just tells me that even though we're plugged into the news every week, even though we're going through everything for you guys to bring you the best coffee moanings all week, even we miss some vital, odd, very strange, obscure cricket details. Ellery Jones, half-term in North Wales next week. Yes, lots of odd half-terms. In fact, our kids are going through, they've got a reading week and one of them's got very long half-term, which is odd, but they don't have an Easter. Very good, Gabrielle. Hi, Happy Bernie. Hi, Raspberry Mojito Girl. And I think, is it a thank you to Cloda for the lovely pens that you sent? Thank you so much. Very, very sweet. Thank you. Good morning. I feel a bit breathless today. I don't know why. If you didn't, check out last night. Me and Nadia did two Brits trying to get to grips with America. Bloody hell. And it's like it's such a fast moving thing that we've even got more footage this morning, more bizarre footage that I've posted on the Coffee Moaning Instagram account too. If you haven't, go and follow us on Coffee Moaning Instagram. If you haven't, go and follow us. And if you're a movie fan, streaming fan, go and follow us on the Popcorn Junkies Instagram. If you're a foodie, go and follow us on the Curly Cooks of Croydon Instagram. And if you just like seeing Nadia's buttocks every now and then, go and follow Nadia on her account too. Or Dina, who's one half of the Curly Cooks, for some fabulous vegan dishes. Or me, if you fancy silliness and politics and dogs. It's like being on a roller coaster, says Raspberry Mojito Girl. You're absolutely right. It's just crazy, isn't it? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about I don't know if you remember the story last year of the well, she wasn't a stalker last year. She claimed to be Madeleine McCann. So we're going to be talking about Maddie McCann's parents' stalker. We're going to be talking about the grisly detail of the wrong hostage body being handed over by Hamas to Israel. We're going to be talking about how Musk just gets muskier. I mean, madder. And yeah, we're going to be talking about that too. And also, if we get time, we're going to quickly chat about Cynthia Erivo, star of Wicked, who has been cast in Jesus Christ Superstar, and it's caused a little bit of upset. And I'm curious to know whether is religion of the Jesus Christ Superstar variety, is it a broad church? Can we embrace all to play Jesus? After all, I think it's a pretty safe bet that Jesus was Palestinian, right? Given his birthplace. So there we go. Probably caused all sorts of blasphemous controversies within the first 3 minutes, 15 seconds. She played Mary Magdalene too, apparently. Oh, there you go. Absolutely. So we'll talk about that too. But let's talk about, first of all, there is breaking news in Israel at the moment. Not only was there the story yesterday, or the developing story of in the hostage swap, Hamas. I don't know if you saw the footage. I was going to play it, but it felt sort of not nice. The footage of the bodies or remains of 4 hostages being handed over to Israel. Hamas have reiterated a claim this morning that the bodies of Shiri Bibas and her 2 children, who were killed by an Israeli airstrike, following, they insist that they are the bodies that they handed over. There seems to be a suggestion that due to, and I don't want to go into the exact, due to the nature of their deaths, by all accounts, the DNA may have been spread across various bodies or remains that have been handed over to the Israelis. There's a sort of perverse kind of, I saw the footage of the coffins being handed over yesterday, and let's face it, it was grisly and it was horrible. And it was a reminder of the poor innocents that were caught up in the October the 7th atrocities. But also, I always see with the handing over of any remains or bodies, it's also, I couldn't help but think of the hundreds and hundreds of body bags that were unceremoniously ditched and dumped in open graves when Israel deigned to return the bodies of prisoners or their hostages. So again, it's not about getting into a sort of competition of how to treat the dead. But I do think even within this grisly, horrendous, deeply distressing story for the families of the hostages who are being handed over, the relatives of those that it's felt have been handed over but haven't, that there is a clear distinction in the media, British media, American media, Western media, and certainly in the minds of the Israeli government over the value of bodies. I mean, I'm sure that in Israel, the idea is that all of the hostages taken were innocent, but there is no way that we can even ascertain innocent or guiltiness of those bodies ditched and dumped in body bags. So there's a lot of chat about the appallingness of the way in which Hamas have handed over the bodies. And I think no exchange of bodies is nice or good or fair or in any way can be sort of, you can't remove the conditions in which it happened. It's hideous, it's reprehensible, it's dark, it's twisted, it's horrible. But once again, even in this, even in the darkness of the handing over of the remains of Palestinians or the remains of Israeli hostages, there's clearly a different value system in the world to Israeli lives than there is to Palestinian lives. Wow. So, you know, everyone's hearts go out to the families of the hostages, and especially in this instance, the idea that potentially, perhaps, even in receiving the remains, they haven't quite received the remains of the right person or of their relative. And this is something also that tens of thousands of people in Gaza are likewise going through. And of course, if Hamas are to be believed, and this was also, they were killed due to Israeli airstrikes, you know, it's a difficult one for Netanyahu to kind of wriggle from, because I think any number of possible attempts to have accepted a ceasefire or taken a ceasefire are earlier opportunities, and it's widely understood amongst all intelligence services that Netanyahu has been the biggest block to ceasefires, then perhaps even these hostages themselves wouldn't have found themselves dead in this way, you know. But it's a tragic event, which once again just showcases the two-tier state of a Palestinian life versus an Israeli life. Edward Bevington, everyone's equal, everyone deserves the same. Not on my shift, it's my mantra. Entirely agree, entirely agree. This morning, incidentally, just on that, there was also, obviously overnight, there were 3 buses that Israel Netanyahu was claiming are a series of terrorist attacks. As I understand it, the bus attack doesn't look like, there've been any deaths. And yet there's a lot of people, or there are a lot of observers who fear that this could be the event, the catalyst for a more severe clampdown in the West Bank. I'm not suggesting we have no way of knowing, and one has to kind of trust at face value, though what is face value in this war, one never really seems to know, because face value is never necessarily the truth. But let's assume that they were perhaps terrorist attacks, not very successful ones insofar as they haven't killed anyone, thankfully, but a number of people are worried that this could be the prelude to a more severe clampdown in the West Bank. And of course, Netanyahu was saying, because the wrong remains of the hostages, or no remains of the hostages, is claimed to have been received by Israel, that the assault on Gaza is imminent. It's due to start very soon. That's just a kind of update on things that are happening over there. I did say last night, I don't know if anyone agrees with this, just on global politics for a minute before we move on. But I do wonder if part of America's courting, I mean, there's no other way of describing it, is it? Courting Putin, or somehow sort of accepting Putin at face value, wooing Putin, or sort of preferring Putin to Zelensky or what have you. I do genuinely feel that behind the scenes, there's a real kind of power struggle amongst superpowers going on. I mean, China have backed the US's move with Russia. So China, in a sense, have stood alongside Russia and said, okay, we agree with these discussions. America is kind of on its own insofar as, but in a weird way, America's finding itself aligned and allied more with Russia than it does at the moment with Europe or the UK. So it's a real kind of jostling, shifting, changing thing. But I do think part of Trump's wooing of Putin is probably to try and get Putin to disentangle himself with Iran, because I don't know if you, I mean, obviously you might know there's a strong connection there between Iran and Russia. Just one second. Just gonna. So just moving on. So let's talk about, before we get to the kind of fun stuff. Matt, do you remember this woman? This woman claimed to be Madeleine McCann. These are the McCann parents. She claimed to be Madeleine McCann last year. Polish woman. Her name is, let's get her name, sorry. Julia Wandel, 23, also known as Julia Wandelt. She's been charged with 4 counts of stalking following her arrest at Bristol Airport on Wednesday this week. It's believed that the charges relate to stalking of Madeleine McCann's parents. I mean, as if they haven't been through enough. And then she went through the process. I don't even remember. I'm pretty certain. Didn't her story go so far as she was going to take a DNA test? She took a DNA test. Christos just back referencing the politics. It's all become the birth of stakeholders, both politically and geographically. Absolutely. It's all about the deal. It's all about the deal. But I'm pretty certain she did do a DNA test, didn't she? And so this is another example, if you think baby reindeer and all that sort of stuff. And we were talking about the Raducanu's stalker, the tennis player, earlier this week. This is taking stalking to unfathomably different levels, isn't it? You know, the idea that you could claim to be the missing daughter of the parents. So she's in custody. She's due to be brought before magistrates in Leicester. Leicester police said in a statement that 2 of the charges she faces relate to stalking between May the 2nd, 2024 and February 15th, last week, 2025. They also confirmed that another 60-year-old woman from Wales was also arrested, but she's been released on bail. And it just, again, just led me to this idea. We kind of touched upon it the other day, didn't we? But stalking, at what point does fandom become stalking in your mind, guys? At what point is, you know, being, say, an autograph hunter or someone who's very obsessed? I mean, you know, fandom is obsessive, isn't it? And there's the kind of healthy end of obsession, and then there's the really unhealthy end of obsession. Am I right in thinking that George Michael at one point for 4 days in his life, didn't a stalker manage to break into his property and hide beneath the bed or beneath the floorboards or something like that? I seem to remember some horrendous story. Lucy Williams, to be 23 and claim such a thing, I genuinely feel she honestly believes it. She has massive mental health problems, and I don't think giving her convictions will help. She's clearly unwell. Well, you're absolutely right. And I think, if anything, there has to be some kind of mental health assessment rather than a straightforward prison sentence. But I mean, how do you treat this kind of mental deficiency? I mean, we've seen, though it's in, you know, it's in a sort of legal quagmire, the woman who was the subject, I forget her name, of the baby reindeer controversy. Do you remember when she did the interview with Piers Morgan? I mean, how do you, you know, altered realities? I mean, if someone believes something, you know, there's the fantasist aspect of it too. Claire Cummins, did she go on Dr. Phil? Has she not been cancelled? He brings people on who are clearly mentally ill. Yes, a dodgy show, isn't it? Or have intellectual disabilities and makes a show of them for entertainment. I think he coined the phrase that we often used when after we've been seeing him in America. You can't run away from your DNA. Well, obviously her DNA wasn't right. It wasn't the right DNA. Edward Bevington, celebrities overrated, folks. Read a book or do crafts instead. Yeah, I always remember, I mean, not that this is really the same thing, but getting starstruck is not really certainly not being a stalker. But I mean, it is odd, isn't it? It's kind of like, you know, becoming obsessed with, is it about having a piece of them? Is it wanting that sort of one-on-one relationship with them? It's odd. It's odd. Elenid Bree, sorry, you just need to listen to the policeman from Operation Grange. They refused to process her DNA. She's not mentally ill. There's more to this than you think, Elenid Bree. Not seeing you comment before, but thank you very much. Lucy, coming back on this, I have no idea how one would treat such a disorder, but I know that she's not doing it for enjoyment. She's definitely suffering. That's very true. It's a little bit like, though it's not exactly the same, it's sort of like trolls and negative. You know, people are struggling. People are suffering. You know, there's some kind of trauma there. And, you know, in the spirit of kind of Friday kindness, one needs to try and understand rather than maybe simply condemn. So shall we go to Elon Musk? Because, I mean, it's such a, well, it's a fast-moving story. It's just such a fast-moving presidency. I'm just going to show you some footage. It's the most bizarre footage. I've posted it on my, I'm going to try and show you it in sort of almost chronological order. I think this was, is it CPAC or APAC or whatever the kind of conservative, hang on, what's the conservative, it's like a conservative conference for conservative leaders. Which Elon Musk went to. But I've put my own music to this. There was no audio to this. There was only music, but I thought we'd put some more appropriate music. This is the president, CPAC. Thank you, Liz D. This is the president, I think he's called the president or prime minister of Argentina, gifting Elon Musk the most unusual of gifts. Hola, amigo, he says, for those of you listening to the podcast. It's like a silent movie, but in lurid, nicotine-stained color. Elon Musk opens the box, and he's been gifted by the Argentinian leader what looks like a silver-plated traditional chainsaw. I don't know if that's one of Elon Musk's 13 children there, but he's very keen on it, holding his leg. He holds it aloft, not entirely to Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Here's some other images of him on stage wielding his chopper. Look at that. And the reason or the rationale behind him having been given a chainsaw is to quite literally chop through the bureaucracy of America. Here's some more footage of him going on stage. CPAC. There he is bouncing around on stage, and there he is awarded it again on stage, and he holds it aloft.
This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy.
There you go, the chainsaw.
That same question, they're also talking about you guys are going to end Social Security, you're going to end Medicare, you're going to end these things. I don't imagine that conversation has been had with the president, and that's the plan.
No, in fact, the actions that we're taking with the support of the president and the support of the agencies is what will save Medicare, what will save Social Security.
Yeah.
What do you think about the sunglasses? I mean, is that glasses to kind of reduce kind of, now there's a couple of other kind of meme-y quotes here. Here's another one.
Come meme. Yeah, pretty much. I'm living the meme. It's like there's living the dream and there's living the meme, and it's pretty much what's happening, you know.
I am become meme. Isn't that a reference? Isn't that an Alien Romulus? Isn't that famous quote by the creator of the atom bomb? Is it? I am. Who's the quote by? It's used in Alien. It was used in Oppenheimer. I am death. Is it? Is it some? But no. I am meme.
Become meme.
I am become meme. Christos, you probably know this quote, isn't
Yeah,
it?
pretty much. I'm living the meme. It's like there's living the dream and there's living the meme, and it's pretty much what's happening, you know.
I mean, it's a bit like his quote last night in our American rant. I think we'd be stupid if we didn't say there's a huge entertainment factor to them both. I mean, we weren't ever playing clips of Biden or Kamala Harris, and I'm not saying we're playing them for the right reasons, and I'm not saying that they indicate a great thing. As I've posted on the Coffee Moaning Instagram, I never saw the end of days manifesting itself in quite this way. Wearing oversized MAGA caps, wielding silver-plated chainsaws. I have become death, destroyer of worlds. That's the chilling. That feels like that's the chilling quote that he's playing with. I have become me. I'm living the meme. He's now living the meme. It's quite. I mean, it's quite clever, I guess. Here's another one. He takes a swipe at the left's desire to remove comedy. Again, this is at CPAC.
The sort of the left wanted to make comedy illegal, you know? Like you can't make fun of anything. So then it's like comedy sucks. It's like nothing's funny. You can't make fun of anything. It's like legalize comedy. Yeah. So like I mean the sort of the left wanted to make comedy illegal, you know? Like you can't make fun of anything. So then it's like comedy sucks. It's like nothing's funny. You can't make fun of anything. It's like legalize comedy.
Does he remind anyone else of Keanu Reeves in? He wasn't in Dumb and Dumber. What was he in? What was the two Muppets? What was Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure? Is that it? It's quite sort of Beavis and Butthead. It's almost it's weird, isn't it? Because he's obviously Bill and Ted. Yeah, it's weird because he's obviously clever. He's obviously rich. He's obviously an astonishing designer, but he's quite sort of he's quite stoner. He's quite stoner. It's all of it is just perplexing, if you ask me. So anyway, so what has he done again last night? He's laid into now chainsaw wielding Elon Musk has laid into Zelensky. He posted last night, Elon. It should be utterly obvious that a Zelensky-controlled poll, or posted yesterday, sorry, about his own approval is not credible. If Zelensky, leader of Ukraine, was actually loved by the people of Ukraine, he would hold an election. He knows he'd lose in a landslide, and in reality, he's despised by the people of Ukraine, which is why he's refused to hold an election. President Trump is right to ignore him and solve the peace of the disgusting, massive graft machine feeding off the dead bodies of Ukrainian soldiers. I mean, playing devil's advocate for a minute, and I am only playing devil's advocate, but can I ask anyone else who's plugged into kind of global politics, could not everything they're doing is insane and it's shocking, but could it yield results? What I mean here is, could it be that they want the best, that the death needs to stop for Ukraine, and maybe they feel, rightly or wrongly, because we have no way of knowing, that Zelensky is the problem? I mean, am I right in thinking, I'm pretty sure I am, I think I've posted and read and seen things about this, that Zelensky was kind of ushered in with the assistance and support of the West? It seems curious that they're kind of hitting Zelensky hard, but not Putin. And yet at the same time, he's trying to sort of talk about, the kind of the meat grinder war machine that's just chewing through so many Ukrainians and Russians. The result will be the permanent weakening of the US and the West, says Liz D. Laura Liu, it made me so as to think all the people of Ukraine running from bombs only to hear Trump say all he did about Zelensky wanting the war. What the fuck does he know, Victoria? I mean, what does he know? It's like watching a sick version of kids' Saturday morning TV, Minky Moo, except they're in charge. I mean, I don't know if you saw the clip that we played in our American Two Brits Try to Come to Terms with America last night. They were like a couple in couples counseling, talking about when they first met. Thanks for that, Bluebell. I really recommend the channel True Geordie for independent news coverage. Fantastic. Thank you. Of course, the meat grinder is bad, so maybe blame the ones responsible. In rather troubling news as well, apparently Vladimir Putin is publishing, or their TV channels, news services in Russia are talking about how various Polish prisoners of war in World War II, how they assisted the fascist regime. It feels like what's beginning to happen with Poland, and Poland are really nervous. I think 5% of their GDP is spent on defense. I think what we're going to, if we start to hear Putin start to describe Poland as a fascist country, because curiously, Putin really does lean on the Holocaust I mean, don't forget, Russia lost, was it 15 million people in World War II? So, and one of his big arguments, wasn't it, for going into Ukraine, was that they were a fascist outfit. Now, if you look into the details of how Zelensky got to power, I do think that Zelensky and there are some regiments within the Ukrainian army that are far right. So it's like all these things, propaganda will seize upon a small item. That's not to say every Ukrainian soldier is right wing, though, is it? And it seems to be the kind of card that Putin uses. I read reports somewhere this morning, I can't remember where, that Putin, they're starting to trot out these stories about the Poles potentially being fascists, or there being a fascist element. Yet the Z Battalion, Edward Bevington, the Azov Battalion, yeah. And as I understand it, I looked into this a couple of years ago when the war had just started, and I believe that the Azov Battalion, or the most right-wing fascist-leaning battalion in the Ukrainian army, one of the most sort of ferocious fighting units, as I understand it. I think it's a hangover from World War II, wasn't it? Was it not? Did they not work much in the sort of? Did they not work on behalf of the Germans? I think they might have done. So again, you know, there's shifting sands of truth, and then there's propaganda on top of a kind of slither of truth, and you know, it's a little bit like you turn to Israel. It's like, okay, well, we have to accept at face value that these buses might be terrorist attacks, but we've seen so many moments of propaganda and false flags and all that kind of stuff that you know, when people used to talk about 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, how can we trust what's going on? Where's the truth? Where's the reality? How do we gauge what's real or not? When you have leaders who are denying the truth of a conflict or a war, you know, there seems to be no sort of empirical objective truth. The black population of Ukraine is interesting, is it, Edward Bevington? Tell me more. I'd be fascinated to know. Cloda, Trump wants the Irish to move to Iceland. We'd enjoy it, apparently, and Ireland would be the gateway to Europe. Please don't tell me he said that. What, he wants to turn Ireland into what? Like a landing strip? Heathrow's 6th landing. Yeah, that would be like Dublin or Ireland, London, like Heathrow, London. Or you are joking. Christos, it will always be interesting into who wanted Zelensky there in the first place, to serve what purpose, and seed the grounds for further geopolitical shift regionally and internationally. You see, I've never got into the territory of whether Ukraine should or shouldn't be a member of NATO. What my perspective on that is, don't be surprised. I'm not talking about whether they should or shouldn't. Don't be surprised that Putin won't be happy about that, because America, as we're witnessing with Trump, wouldn't be happy about Mexico becoming a member of, say, the BRIC group. You know, so you've got to bear in mind that this is for Putin in his backyard. I said last night, I think the news agent said we're at an epochal moment. I can never say that word. It's a bit like artisanal, sour bread, or epochal. It feels like we're at a moment, but then how many times have we felt like we were at a moment? COVID was a moment, and then we move on. And then in fact, 3 years later, everyone says, get over it. So could we be at the end of the world in 3 years' time? They'll be like, get over it. We've got a fucking great big asteroid that's 3.1% likely to hit Earth. Have you seen that? 2031. Reese Roberts, that's most probably due to the racist treatment of black people in general by Eastern Europe. Absolutely. You're absolutely right, Reese. It's like a massive plot, says Grace Ann Martin, with all the leftover food thrown in and hoping for a brilliant outcome. It's not going to happen. It's all distraction. Oh, a massive pot. Did I say pot? Yes. I mean, America is racist towards black people, Liz D. I mean, it's just, yeah. Where are we heading? Where are we heading? Just to finally on this, before we talk about Cynthia Erivo, just a final quote that I found from Trump, a little bit concerning.
Again, you tell me. There's your controversy right there. There's your controversy. Thank you.
Do you want to hear that again?
Can you tell me? There's your controversy right there. There's your controversy. Thank you.
Isn't it interesting around the idea of him completely changing, transforming, going through whatever process the Constitution of America would have to go through for him to serve another 4 years? It's the only time I think I've ever seen Donald Trump, apart from when in interview with Fox News alongside Elon Musk, where I've seen Donald Trump coquettish. He was positively coquettish there, almost shy. Almost shy. It's quite petrifying. I mean, and again, I don't want to be proven right on this, but we're all we're in the first month, aren't we, of the actuality of something we've all heard him talk about for the whole campaign trail. And I don't know if anyone else agrees. I said last night, I think what he can play the kind of, and it's not particularly avuncular, but he tries to play the avuncular protector. He comes in, says it as it is. It's so many people like Mel Gibson say, Daddy's home. He takes off the belt. Everyone's like, oh, and everyone does his bidding. But actually, fundamentally, he'll get in a car with his granddaughter and look like the ultimate kind of sweetie-ish. But all of the decisions and choices and changes that he's making to the structure and governance and society of America, I think what could happen here is he's creating what I believe, this is what I was suggesting last night, I don't know if anyone agrees, I think he's could be creating a tinderbox situation for all those types of people that he is hostile to or has no time for. The left, people on the left, people of any diversity, trans, everyone who doesn't fit his somewhat Aryan brotherhood vision of America. America first. If he makes life so intolerably difficult for all of them, what could end up happening is there will be uprisings, there will be resistance, there will be a kickback and a fight back and a pushback. And then at that point, in a somewhat passive aggressive move, he can go, well, I'm having to do this and wrest control of the system for the protection of the nation. And I think he can sit there sort of pretending that he's just Mr. Avuncular who says stupid things and da-da-da-da. Does anyone agree? I personally think that's where we could be heading. The only times democracies, Zelensky, theoretically, the only time in our country, America, democracies put away or stop the idea of an election is when there's conflict, war, or a state of emergency. I mean, I can't see him settling. And let's not beat around the bush. I know everyone thinks he's only got 4 years, but really, he's only got 2 years until the midterm elections, because that will be the first verdict on him. That's why he's moving at such a lick. Because, really, he's got, I mean, then the campaign for the midterms will start at the end of this year, really. So in this first year, just watch everything. Watch everything. I also think, Reese Roberts, that spring, summer will see more protests in the US against Trump. There are some now, but due to winter, it's less. Christos, you've got to feel sorry about him. It's like a child who was never loved and suddenly some people show him love. And he's coquettish there, isn't he? Minky Moo, one, as Joan Didion said, great writer, in Washington, a community in which the management of news has become the single overriding preoccupation of the core industry, what fairness has often come to mean is a scrupulous passivity and agreement to cover the story, not as it's occurring, but as it's presented, which is to say, as it's manufactured. And I'd say that's how the West has dealt with Israeli press releases around everything in Palestine. Okay, final topic, and then we'll move on to quiz of the week. Cynthia Erivo is being talked about, is going to be cast to play Jesus Christ in a production of Jesus Christ Superstar at the Hollywood Bowl in California. Oscar-nominated actress Cynthia Erivo has divided fans after being cast as the lead in Jesus Christ Superstar. Now, is anyone here a fan of Jesus Christ Superstar? We had a moment with it where one of our daughters was well into it at one point. So, am I right in thinking, is Cynthia Erivo gay? I think she is. Not that I'm not saying that matters, but of course, I think the prospect, if she is, and I've read that a black lesbian singer is going to play Jesus. You can kind of see why this would ruffle a few feathers. I personally think this is the best kind of finger up to Trump, etc's kind of pushback on diversity, integration, equality, and everything like that. I think a lesbian black Jesus is like fantastic. I mean, I know there's a lot of people who are kind of like, what? I mean, let's just for a minute. I was listening to Sheila Fogarty, who I cannot abide more and more. I find her, people lose their shit if you suggest for a minute that if there was Jesus existed, and I realize that in itself is potentially blasphemous, though I am not a religious person. They were more than likely, they were born in an area now known as Palestine, or kind of Palestine, or if it could be Palestine. So it's probably Palestinian. Don't forget, you can get Palestinian Jews as well as Palestinian Muslims and Palestinian Christians. You can be Palestinian first. So he was probably of color. Whether the, you know, uppity Christians of the West would like to think that, he was probably of color. I believe he became whiter and whiter, Jesus, when the Crusaders were succeeding in kind of rewriting the story. Jesus is said to be buried in Palestine. Absolutely. I've stood at the point in the River Jordan where I think he baptized someone, or someone was baptized. And so, you know, I mean, it's in the Middle East. But so Sharon, Jesus is not a woman. So, okay, so interesting. So color, I think we can get on board with. Gender, can we get on board with gender? Sexual orientation, can we get on board with that? Now, I remember years ago when I was a student, the movie Last Temptation of Christ, starring Willem Dafoe, directed by Martin Scorsese. They were trying to get that film closed because it includes scenes, I think, of him having sex with Mary Magdalene and him kind of toying and troubling over his role and his immortality and who he was, what he was, and all this kind of stuff. I found that film, I find any portrayal of Jesus really much more intriguing when there are shades of color and doubt and guilt and a wrestling with what it means to be carrying this burden of being what he is to people, what he becomes to people. So yes, people have got upset, but here's my final. Okay, so for those of you who can get on board with the color but can't get on board with the sex or perhaps the sexual orientation, here's my final salvo to defend it. Jesus Christ Superstar was always a rock and roll musical. It was, I don't know if you remember the original film, obviously it's Andrew Lloyd Webber. The original film, the film ends with them all as a cast getting on tour buses or crew buses and driving off out of the desert, leaving poor old Jesus on the cross. I remember sitting on my granddad's lap, and he must have hated that film because he didn't like music. I remember, and he used to feed me his tea on a teaspoon. It was always very sweet. It was lovely. I remember crying so hard when I saw that they left Jesus on the cross. I couldn't stop crying. It was my moment. It was my kind of hallelujah moment where I was about 6 or 7. No, I must have been a bit older, about 8. I was still sitting on his lap at 8. But it was just like, I remember thinking, But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is it was a hippie rock and roll, like that musical Hair. It was meant to be, bam, rock and roll in your face. The songs, look at the songs, look at the characterization of the characters and just look at the film and the camera work. And I've seen productions of it. It's out there, it's whacked and all that. So for me, if you can ever justify a black, lesbian, obviously female, Jesus, I think it's probably in Jesus Christ Superstar. And for me, I love it. I love it. It's a kind of indirect fuck you to anyone who's anti-diversity. Plus, she's a cracking singer, and she's incredibly and not just a cracking singer. I would go so far as to say her acting in Wicked is second to none. So there, I throw it to you. Anyone still think no? It's a no-no. I remember after watching the film, as I was given another spoon of tea, I then began to see crucifixes in everything. I mean, it was a moment. If I wasn't staying at my nan and dad's, I'd have possibly entered some kind of dark, strange, born-again toddler moment. Wait and see how she does, says Raspberry Mojito Girl. They went back the next day to break his bones on the cross, a usual thing, but he'd usually died. How the hell, Lucy Williams, how the hell could Jesus be white? How? What one person in that entire area, being white? For fuck's sake, Jesus wasn't white, if I believe. I agree. I mean, when you turn around and say to people, actually, not only was he not white, but he was probably Palestinian. Okay, I don't think he was a woman, unless he was called Jesusina. Sounds brilliant to me, says Megan Garner. Yeah, I'm kind of on board with it. It's a no from me. I've got to respect that. No from me, Gemma Perry. Thank you. Okay, yeah, fair dues. Maybe a bit too much for some. Jesus was pretty much a socialist hippie, Rachel Thomas. Yeah, absolutely. He'd have been an actor, probably, sort of. He'd been one of those guys who pulls out a guitar, Jesus with a guitar, and then I'd have got right armpit. Anyway, quiz of the week. Let's do it. Our lovely Faith isn't here, but she says she'll be here later. So quiz of the week for those regulars, for those of you who are here for the news, it's over, it's done. Unless you like having your general knowledge for the past week tickled and teased and tested, you may want to head off. So let me pull this up. Quiz of the week. 7 questions. See if you can get 7 out of 7. I'm just pulling this over so I can see all your comments. Oh, sorry. Oh, come on. What's going on here? Sorry. There we go. Okay, quiz of the week. Are you ready? Everyone ready? Just do this. Oh, what have I done? Right. Jesus would not fit the agenda of most politicians. No, you're absolutely right. He'd be far too diverse and far too socialist, wouldn't he? I mean, he was a socialist at the end of the day. Okay, question 1. You couldn't care less, to be fair. I couldn't, or you couldn't, Victoria Moore. I could. I do care. Be thankful. Get 3 right. Raspberry to go. Bridget Jones, Mad About the Boy, has earned the best box office opening ever for a rom-com in the UK. Deservedly so, according to the distributor Universal. Which film starring Hugh Grant previously held the record? A, Love Actually, B, Notting Hill, or C, Bridget Jones, The Edge of Reason? I guessed, and I got this wrong. Which film starring Hugh Grant previously held the record for the highest box office opening for a rom-com in the UK? Was it A, Love Actually, B, Notting Hill, or C, Bridget Jones, The Edge of Reason? Minky Moo, I'm up to speed. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to review Severance, the series, at the end of the series, but I'm really enjoying it. And a happy birthday for Reese for yesterday, Reese. I hope you're well and hope you had a lovely day. Happy birthday, matey. Would people even believe if Jesus declared himself is the real question now that there is so much palpable doubt in the world about truth? That's a very good point. Imagine if he came strolling out of Gaza saying, I'm Jesus. He'd just get shot by an Israeli sniper. The answer is C, Bridget Jones, The Edge of Reason. Question 2, a British Egyptian team have discovered the tomb of a pharaoh for the first time since Tutankhamun's was uncovered more than a century ago. Whose burial chamber did they find? I was reading about this yesterday. Was it A, Queen Hatshepsut, B, King Thutmose II, or C, King Amenhotep II? There was not very much in the tomb, but there were lovely kind of crescent moons and stars painted all over the walls, apparently. A new tomb has been found, the first big pharaoh tomb since Tutankhamun's. Whose was it? Is it A, Queen Hatshepsut, B, King Thutmose II, or C, King Amenhotep II? I'm not going to say those again. Excuse me. Dearie me, sorry. Just one sec. Oh, sorry for those of you listening on podcast. The answer is B, King Thutmose II. Question 3. Donald Trump has called Ukrainian President Zelensky a dictator and said he's been doing a terrible job. He's a dictator, very unpopular man, very bad man. The post on social media came after Zelensky accused the president of living in what? A Russian bubble, B, a false reality, or C, a disinformation space? I'll just have a drink of this. What did Zelensky describe Trump as living in? A Russian bubble, B, a false reality, or C, a disinformation space? Dry throat. The answer is C, a disinformation space. Question 4. A video of Venezuelan kayaker being caught in the mouth of a whale went viral this week. What was the first thing he noticed after nearly being eaten? Was it A, the slime in the whale's mouth, B, the smell of the whale's breath, or C, the teeth in the whale's mouth? Now, we briefly touched on this story, but I didn't get to what he noticed in its mouth. What was the first thing the kayaker who got swallowed by a whale noticed? Was it A, the slime in the whale's mouth, B, the smell of the whale's breath, or C, the teeth in the whale's mouth? Clodagh Egan is correct. Clodagh Fiona Mark's pregnancy pain, read Egan, to fully quote you. The answer is A. Do apologise for my strange breathing, coughing and swallowing. Question 5. Everton invited the first visitors to their new stadium on Monday for an under-18s friendly match. Wigan's Harrison Rimmer scored the first goal at the ground, but what else did he do to rile Everton fans? A, cover up his mouth, B, hold up his fingers, or C, make a crying face? Good God. Obviously, someone from the sports department contributes to the quiz, and it's always a bit random. Everton invited first visitors to their new stadium for an under-18s friendly match. Wigan's Harrison Rimmer scored the first goal, but what did he do to annoy Everton fans? Was it A, cover his mouth, B, hold up his fingers, or C, make a crying face? I went for C, thinking B would be obvious, but the answer is B. Question 6. Mikey Madison won Best Actress at the BAFTAs for her role in Anora. She is sensational. Do check it out. It's available to stream. Who does her character, a stripper in New York, fall in love with in the film? A, the wayward daughter of a US senator. B, a talented but troubled musician. Or C, the young son of a Russian oligarch? Well, I certainly got that one right. What character, what sort of person does she fall in love with? A, the wayward daughter of a US senator. B, a talented but troubled musician. Or C, the son of the young son of a Russian oligarch? I think it gets a bit baggy as a film in the middle, but it's a good film. It's an enjoyable film. Kind of becomes a screwball comedy. It's quite sexy too. It's quite explicit. The answer is C, the young son of a Russian oligarch. Question 7. Kensington Palace showed off the royal family's artistic flair by releasing portraits sketched by the Princess of Wales and her family. But which of her children did she draw? Was it A, Prince George, B, Princess Charlotte, or C, Prince Louis? Kensington Palace showed off the royal family's artistic flair by releasing portraits sketched by the Princess of Wales and her family. But which of her children did she draw? Was it A, Prince George, B, Princess Charlotte, or C, Prince Louis? Liz D says her secret child. Liz D isn't taking this quiz seriously. Is that because D is in your name? Liz D says D, her secret child, Prince Skippy. That would be weird, wouldn't it, if she had a secret child? The answer is C, Prince Louis. How did everyone do? Oh, I didn't look to see how I'd done. I'd done badly. I think I got about 3 or 4. Well, not badly, but not brilliantly. D is always the answer, says Liz D, because she's D. Liz D, of course. Whilst you're totting up your scores, let's just have one more blast of this madman.
Come meme. Yeah, pretty much. I'm just living the meme. It's like there's living the dream and there's living the meme, and it's pretty much what's happening, you know.
Living the meme. The world's going down the Swanee in a meme. 4 out of 7 Ellery, 2 for the Country Pumpkin, 4 for Reese. That's good. Margaret O'Brien, 5. Cloda, 5. Fantastic. Well done, all of you. I got 4 too, so well done. Guys, have a lovely day. Something will be landing later. Lots of love. Don't forget, busy weekend. You've got the Curly Cooks, you've got Coffee Moaning, you've got a live Sunday show coming on Sunday, not surprisingly. You've got the Sunday vlog, all sorts of stuff landing. Keep your eyes peeled. And a vlog landed last night, a nice historic one, with a nice, very chirpy moment with my dear mum, Nanny Di. So go and check that out. Anyway.